My name is Cassy Summers. Welcome to the Curious Universe podcast. There once was a young man that possessed a most astonishing talent. He could change very complex problems for people by only using his voice. By happenstance, he discovered this one day, curing his grandmother of severe arthritis. She was in the kitchen, kneading dough for the home-cooked bread that she had done every Sunday for as long as he could remember. And he noticed, for the first time, that her fingers were curled up in a strange way, and expressions of pain cut deep across her face. But she kept kneading without pause or complaint. He stood there with such caring and adoration of this woman, and as her pain grew, he wondered, what could he possibly do to help her? The desire to change this was so big in his world, he couldn't move away. His eyes seemed to lock onto her curled fingers. And soon that desire intensified and became in demand. He wondered about the pain, her bones, her nerves deeper and deeper. His wondering went, and without warning or thought, he opened his mouth and let out a very loud, high-pitched sound, startling his grandmother immensely, but he didn't stop. He stood there with the sound pouring out of him, with his gaze still on her hands, but unfocused now. The sound grew more and more intense, and then as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. The grandmother blinked a few times and shook her head a little at the surprise of it all. Her mouth dropped open, and she raised her hands before her eyes as though she had to see it to believe it. Her fingers were uncurled, strong, and without pain. It did not take long for the rumors to start, and soon people from all over the world would come and ask him to use his talent for them. Back pain, gone. Ulcers, gone. Injuries, gone. On and on they came, and out of his desire to help people, he spent long days and sometimes even nights healing everyone and anyone that would ask. But one day, a young girl showed up that had lost her ability to walk and was asking for a miracle. The biggest miracle yet. She was wheeled up to him by her hopeful mother, and he noticed right away two things. She was incredibly beautiful, and she had given up. He was determined to help her. So he took a deep breath and began to wonder. He wondered about her spine, her legs, her nerves, her brain, her muscles, her joy. And then without any warning, the most intense, loud, and powerful sound came bursting from his body. The intensity was so enormous. He appeared angry and almost violent in his manner. He flooded the room with his sound, and the wide-eyed young girl began crying and crying. She heaved and sobbed and began to match his sound with her screams. The young girl's mother, feeling helpless, yelled for him to stop, but they only got louder. Desperate to protect her daughter, she yelled at her husband to stop him, and quick to his feet, he ran to the young man and slapped him hard across the mouth, silencing him. The young girl lost consciousness immediately. The mother made panicked attempts to revive her lifeless body. She turned to the young man, cursing him and accusing him of killing her daughter. She told the world of this atrocity. Weeks and weeks went by, and the daughter never woke. The young man felt broken, began to believe that he had indeed killed that beautiful daughter, and he decided to never use his talents again. Many years went by. Most had forgotten about him. He took over the bakery after his grandmother passed away, and he baked and worked. And as he aged, he began to experience a lot of pain in different areas of his body. He noticed his fingers were starting to curl like his grandmother's. His back ached by the end of the day. His left shoulder started to grind in unexpected ways, and soon he had so many digestive issues he barely ate. But he kept going as his grandmother had, and the pain grew day by day more intensely. Eventually, he became bedridden with excruciating pain he did not know was even possible to feel. For months and months he suffered, and eventually he gave up. He no longer believed it would ever stop, and he wondered what he would have to do to end this suffering. The very next morning, his caregiver came to the room announcing he had a guest. However, he refused to see them. The pain had just become too much. So the guest went away, but returned the next day, and the next day, and the next. Every day, his caregiver announced the guest, and after the 7th day, the man finally broke and agreed to see them. In walked a woman, and right away he noticed 2 things. She was immensely beautiful, and she was no longer in a wheelchair. He gazed adoringly at her with tears dazzling his eyes, and took a breath so deep it was as though he hadn't truly breathed since that day she had been wheeled out. And as he exhaled, the immense amount of pain released from every part of his body, as if by magic. Thank you for exploring the curious universe with me. Your curiosity matters. And what if together we could create a greater, more curious world?